Hello and welcome to the Jordan Powers Experience. My name is Jordan Powers, and on today's episode, I am joined by the one, the only, the vibrant and confident Sian Flanagan. Sian is a leading intuitive coach for entrepreneurs. She's the CEO of The Business of You, which also has their own podcast called The Business of You. And she is a director, a poetess, and an authoress as well. So very talented person. I had an absolute blast talking to her. We discussed things like anxiety and depression and how one may deal with that. We discussed physical activity and how important that is for one's kind of overall wellness. And we also talked about some breathwork techniques and the time that she just saw a sign and took off to LA to pursue whatever that sign may be, and she ended up creating her first ever short film. She directed it, she acted in it, she wrote it, styled it, did everything an indie filmmaker does, and ended up winning like a ton of awards for first short film. So very talented person. I had a blast talking to her, and I think you guys really gain a lot from this conversation and hearing Sian out. So just a quick word from my supporters, starting with Oakham Cannabis. Oakham Cannabis is a local craft cannabis brand. They've been growing here in the Okanagan for just over 2 years now. They use organic, environmentally friendly practices to make high THC bud and oils. You can check them out at www.oakhamcannabis.com, or you can go to your local BC cannabis store and ask for their products, Smoke 'em or Discover. So make sure you go check that stuff out. My favorite stuff on the market. Highly recommend. My second supporter is Garnish Barware. Garnish Barware is trusted behind some of Canada's busiest cocktail bars. They create custom engraved cocktail kits and like dope little flasks and stuff. So if you're a pro bartender slanging behind the bar, highly recommend picking up some custom gear from my man Griffin. He laser engraves all of them, custom, handmade here in Columbia, BC. And yeah, even if you're not a professional bartender, you might as well pick one up, because I know all y'all drinking at home these days. So that's about it. Enjoy my conversation with Sian Flanagan. I thought it was Sian Flanagan, but like when I was looking at your Instagram, I was like, is it Sian? Is it
I know.
Sian?
Everyone gets it wrong. It's fine. It's fine. I'm over it. It's Irish. It's like that Siobhan or whatever with the B. That doesn't really make sense either, but
I don't know that one.
Well, there's like a Siobhan name and there's a B in it. I don't even know how it's spelled, but my name is similar to that, but It's been a challenge my whole life, so but that's okay. It actually was such a challenge that I got so sick of having substitute teachers coming in and saying it wrong that I actually changed my name to Shauna. And it's so weird
like
to hear
legally,
that name. Or? No, I just
or you would just tell them.
I put an A on the end. So then people almost got it right. It was a little bit better.
See, nobody confuses Jordan.
Yeah, exactly.
It's pretty simple.
Right?
And there's tons of us now.
Yeah. And and then after high school, I was like, hey, I can't do this. This is like an imposter. So I switched back to Sian. And it was funny, actually, one time my brother was talking to a girl who I grew up with and played soccer with, and he was in her grade. And she messaged me one day. She's like, I just got in a fight with your brother because I was telling him that your real name is Sian. And he's like, I would know what my sister's name is. It's not Sian, it's Shauna. But it was Sian.
Is he a younger brother? Or?
No, he's older. Oh. He's older. It's just that's how it was very young. I think I was in elementary school when I switched it to Shauna in class, because I was like, I'm sick of this. No one can get this name right.
At that age, you're like, I'm
like, oh, I'm so sick of being pinpointed out every time there's a sub. Yeah, most teachers cancel class anyways, have an extra day off, you know.
I'm probably going to keep that all in to the episode. So welcome, people. I am with the wonderful Sian Flanagan.
Hello.
Thank you for coming on to the Jordan Powers Experience.
Yes, I'm super excited to be here and to share time with you.
I'm excited to have you on because, Sian, you are an amazing speaker.
Oh, cool. Thanks.
I noticed your stuff online, and I've seen you around town and met you through Mitch and stuff. And when I saw your content online, I was like, damn, she knows how to like talk. Like she can talk to a camera and she can tell you what's up. And I think people need to hear that more often. Yeah.
I like to keep it really real. So that's kind of how I roll. I got into speaking. Oh my God. what year was it? I think in 2017, 2016, I would say. I started kind of, going outside my comfort zone. And I was actually terrified of speaking for a very long time. I used to black out the whole 9 yards. It was horrible. And that feeling that you get where your whole body is basically shaking before you have to either go on stage or do a performance or whatever it is. And as much as I was a soccer player and an athlete for most of my life, and I played semi-pro, it's a different environment when you're going out and you're sharing something and you're either speaking your truth, or maybe you're sharing a piece of poetry, or you're talking about knowledge that you have to share. Mm-hmm. And I really realized that I have a lot to share, but I wasn't sharing it, right? As, even with the times right now, there's a lot of people that are hiding or suppressing or really not stepping into their truth and not really aligning with that path of purpose and really being intentional with what they have to share and what they have to give and the gifts that they have to create whatever it is they're supposed to be doing here on their time in Earth. Wow, that didn't make sense. With their time on Earth. So yeah, I kind of realized, this is a new exploratory arena. And I first started by going to, I think it was Inspired Word Cafe here locally. And I think that was one of my first places where I kind of got out of my shell.
Nice.
And it was absolutely terrifying.
What was Inspired Cafe?
Inspired Word Cafe is poetry.
Oh, okay.
So it's poetry nights. It's a great little community, tight hub of people. And I got invited out and I kind of just started showing up in that way. And then that grew to doing workshops and other public speaking events. And then before I knew it, I was also volunteering and sharing different talks and curating different speeches for students down in Vancouver. I was one of the lead panelists for a core group of people who would go into schools for students who had lots of challenges in the sense that their community either had a lot of challenges and struggles and needed a little bit of pick-me-up or direction. And so I became a panelist for that, and I volunteered my time driving to Vancouver and learning my craft of learning how to deliver a message and how to be okay in front of that space. And who better than, kids from grade 10 and up. They're the hardest people to make happy. They're the hardest people
and they're forced to stay there.
And be forced to stand in front of the assembly and just kind of, hold your own in that space with, multiple eyes and, wandering brains and be able to gravitate and learn how to curate and bring a presence. So that was a learning curve and it was terrifying. I'm glad I did it, but it was a journey. Mm-hmm. Yeah, still is. I mean, still on that journey, still on that path.
And can you kind of describe to the audience maybe just what you do and what your company name is and all that kind of stuff?
So I'm the founder and owner of The Business of You, which is a coaching platform. And by day, I help entrepreneurs to alleviate anxiety, to detox it so that they can align with their purpose, their vibrancy, and their confidence, so that they can really begin to live on that path of fulfillment rather than striving for success and never really achieving the feeling that they want to experience. So by day, I coach. And then in the last while, I've become more of a creative on the side in expressing that knowledge in a different medium through poetry, writing a book, and through short films, through conscious entertainment. So the other half of the creative has within me has created Ran to Jam Films, which is a short film production where I am sharing conscious education through a fusion art form, through poetry, prose, and Well, more so through poetry and ranting more than anything on a screen with some visual effects and symbolism. So that's really fresh. That's pretty new. And they all kind of mix and match, but it's just a way for me to nurture all of those gifts and serve by day, and also lean into the creative by night to learn more wisdom and to kind of embody a new wave of consciousness as I move through time and space and bring that to the forefront and learn from those downloads, and then be able to share them through strategically within the Vibrant Living method, which I've created. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So by day, that's what I help people with.
Damn.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned that you help people with kind of dealing with anxiety and stuff when they're in the workplace. Did you kind of have your own forms of anxiety growing up? Because I related to that because I played soccer growing up, played pretty competitively, and then I got into like arts and film and all that kind of stuff after high school. But I remember playing in like semifinals and stuff and being like so anxious, and I wasn't the best player by any means on the field, and so I'd get put on there and I'd be like, damn, I better not mess up. Like this is a big deal.
Yeah, no, I've had my own struggles. I feel like I got put through the ringer early on, and so I learned a lot about life, and I'm still learning. I'm a student of life forever, but I've had multiple experiences where it's been one of those things where you have to go inside yourself, or you have you go for that long walk in the dark night of the soul. And when you've been there a few times, you learn a different element about yourself and consciousness and life. And that changes you in a really beautiful way. I think sometimes when we label ourselves with anxiety or depression or all of these things, that they're just a label. Mm-hmm. There's something within those spaces of your state of being to learn. And when you can lean in that and learn how to almost bathe in it in a way where you can almost acknowledge what the challenge really is and begin to face it versus running from it, that's when you begin to cultivate the wisdom. And so for me, that was a huge part of my awakening for me, is going through a lot of the mental struggle and the mental barriers. Because when I was really young, I was 9 years old when I declared I wanted to be a professional soccer player. I mean, I know that there's a lot of other people who have big dreams at a young age, but I've known for a very long time, even when I was young, that I was a very old soul. Like, that's just how I feel. And so when I made that declaration, though, I stuck to that path. And there was a lot of challenges I had, just like any normal person, you have those challenges of being in school, or, dealing with bullies, or dealing with people who don't approve of you. And you have to learn how to get comfortable within your own skin. And so I went through quite a bit of that. And then one of my breaking points of kind of the anxiety side of my experience was when I actually stepped away from athleticism. So at 19, I was playing over in Europe as a semi-pro soccer player. And I just kind of hit a wall. I kind of got to that point where I could stay, I could work really hard, and I could probably make the first team. And I just kind of took a screenshot of everyone that was around me who had made it, that quote unquote, you're getting paid to play kind of thing. But in a woman's world, that reality looked very different. Mm-hmm. And so there wasn't really much of a paycheck. Most of those women were full-time nurses on top of, pulling somehow whatever they did on the field, training for 5 days a week on top of the extras. And it just seemed like, wow, I don't think I really thought this through all the way, given the times. And now it's changed a little bit. There's a bit more of a spotlight on that arena. But for me, it wasn't there, and I didn't want to wait around for that day to maybe arrive. Mm-hmm. And so I had to make the hard choice to walk away from that. And one of my first, challenges with experiencing high levels of anxiety was identity crisis. Because when you have formed who you are based on the level of labels or attachments that you have to your external environment, what ends up happening is when that external environment, when you are removed of it, you no longer see yourself. Mm-hmm. And you can no longer claim to be that which is no longer a part of your environment. And that was a very challenging time for me. And for myself personally, I really struggled with vulnerability. So just, wave the white flag over here. If all y'all listening got some challenges with feeling open and vulnerable, I feel you. And it's a hard place to be, especially when you have that kind of personal expectation, or you were raised in a family environment that had that expectation to some degree for you to not share emotions, or emotions were shamed, or it was always about sucking it up and getting through the day, whatever that was. And that at the time of being 19, I went through that experience of identity crisis, and I didn't get help from anyone. So it was a deep well of learning the matrix of psychology on my own. Mm-hmm. And fortunately for myself, I actually went in and I studied psychology very much, as well as human kinetics. So I learned a lot about this temple, I like to call it the spacesuit, because that's what it is. And I learned about how it works and what's in it and how things kind of blend together. And I started to form very early on, a way for myself to really begin to see myself beyond just the spacesuit. And it was shallow at first, but slowly that was kind of the beginning of the path of where I am now today. And so it was a long road in terms of that, but one of the symptoms of what I was experiencing was high levels of anxiety, and learning how to redesign my inner world to cultivate a way of being that reflected the real me was kind of the ultimate key. That was for me the path, the light that I was driven to seek and to find. Mm-hmm. And through that, I learned a lot about the body. And over time, I had multiple other experiences, which then supported me in putting the pinnacle of everything I've learned from having anxiety and different types of even depression, to really understanding how the brain ticks, how the body ticks, and how you can actually rewire it to become more of the real you. When we're in those states of anxiousness, when we're in those states of mental health crisis. God, I hate that word, mental health. I really do. Yeah. I'm just going to say that right now. I have to say this. Simply because health equals the absence of illness and disease, which means you're just existing.
Health equals the absence of
illness and disease.
Okay.
So if you just have an absence of illness and disease, you are not thriving.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. And I'm all about...
You're just existing at that point. You're base neutral.
You're kind of like...
You're just here.
You're just in a bag of skin. You're just hanging around,
Yeah.
So for me, I would like to bring into this conversation the caliber of vibrant mental health. I still don't really like the word health, or vibrant mental well-being. Something along that lines, where we can begin to understand that health actually negates the other half of the human being.
Health negates the other half of the human being.
A human
Yeah.
Being is a 2-part word for a reason. Right?
Okay.
You have physical form, you have a mind, you have a body, and you have a spirit.
And that's
Except
the
for
human, or is that the being?
So mind and body, there's the human. Cool. You can have great cognitive function. You can have a lot of knowledge, all that stuff. But what is the driver that really catapults you to a level of fulfillment, a level of success, a level of really being authentically you? It's your spirit. And we don't talk about that.
Not nearly as much anymore.
Not nearly as much as what's necessary.
There's a lot of hocus pocus out there also when it comes to the spirit.
There can be. But for each person, it's about peeling back the onion over time. And so I'm about really looking at the human being from a place of wholesomeness rather than from a place of deficiency. There's something to fix. Right? And that's the blueprint that we've bred into the psychology.
I agree. Yeah,
of
that
men
makes sense.
And women in society. It's foundationally built on the fear-based culture of society, right? Because then it makes it really easy for you to have to consume things to fix yourself.
Right.
So it weaves really beautifully for that side of what our culture is in society. But ultimately, mental health, I think it's important for us to recognize, there might be, what would the optimal version of that look like, for you as an individual and for us as a society.
Is there a blueprint of like the optimal human being, one that is vibrant and healthy and all these things you speak of? Like, is there a blueprint for the optimal one, the number one, what we should all be striving for?
You know what? I think it's not about striving. I think it's about peeling back it's about unfolding. It's really, you are wholesome in and of itself. And when we're in these states of feeling a level of anxiousness, or we're struggling with dealing effectively with our emotional pendulum, what's happening is we're basically drinking the poison, right? We're whole and we're complete. It's just about stop drinking the poison. But to do that, you have to redesign your inner world. You have to be able to understand your core beliefs and how those play out subconsciously and how they affect your choice in every moment that you're in. And when you don't know what your operating system is feeding on, that's when you're kind of left in the dark. And when you don't really see that there's a different way or a different side of the coin to life. You kind of just live in this fog, if you will, because I spent a lot of my time in the fog many, many years ago. And so I know what it's like to be in that place. And I also know what it's like when you, open the door to like this whole vibrant side of life, and you just see yourself and you see the world in a different way. And you really begin to utilize all of your resources, your knowledge, your intuition, which we don't talk about enough in terms of how that plays a huge role in our vibrant mental health. It's important for us to be really connected to that. Otherwise, we will ultimately just be a human doing instead of a human being.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I would assume you would say there's probably a lot of poison to drink out there in the world nowadays.
There's so much.
Right?
There's so much manipulation. There's so much of it all. And that really becomes the challenge. How do you find yourself in all of that? How do you also redefine yourself through any chapter and really begin to align with what brings you joy and what lights you up and what actually doesn't motivate you, but what inspires you? Because for me, like, I created the Vibrant Living Method, which is literally a system to build and express your unlimited power, right? CEO, confidently expressing omnipotence. Omnipotence equals unlimited power, right? And so I'm all about cultivating that inner CEO to really align and transcend into a way of thinking and being where you're in alignment with the authentic you. And you can't do that unless you have the human and the being operating in cohesiveness. We're so used to just looking at the symptom of one aspect of a human being versus looking at a human being as whole and complete, and then just stripping away the bits of poison that I was talking about before, or what's not really serving that person from a soulful side as well as from a direct, result side, and taking into account all of those things, I think is so critical. Because for me, it was so critical to be able to shift radically 360 degrees, same as my clients, 360 degrees, can happen in 90 days.
That's got to be
less
inspiring.
than 90 days.
Seeing like somebody just completely change their life in,
oh my God,
in 90 days.
It's amazing. I'm like, oh my God.
Like, holy shit, I'm actually...
I'm like, oh, I might be honest here. Right? I'm like, yeah. No, I mean, it's a great feeling. They're doing the work. Kudos to them. They're stepping up and they're showing up and they're doing it. And I'm just someone who's guiding the infrastructure for them to rebuild and redesign. But unless we go through that process, it becomes very challenging for us to believe that there's a different alternative or that there's a different way to live other than the one that we've been fed.
You mentioned a lot about like identity and anxiety and depression, and how kind of losing that identity can cause a lot of those feelings to come up. I find that nowadays, especially when we're talking about some of this like poison, Instagram can be the cure or it can be the poison. But I find, correct me if I'm wrong, I find a lot of people use anxiety or use depression as their identity. And it's hard to almost like separate from that. How would you go about dealing with somebody who like sees that as themselves when they look in the morning, they look at themselves and they say like, I'm the depressed person, I'm the anxious person, and that's my identity?
Well, are you asking that question from the point of view that person is almost playing into it, or
Not
they don't
necessarily.
really want to be in that, they just identify as that?
Yeah, I would just more the second part, more
Okay.
that they just identify as
Yeah,
that.
I mean, I can say that, when you feel a level of anxiousness or, when you're in depression and you feel that fog, it's very real, right? And so the language in which we use to identify ourselves is really, really critical. I mean, if we don't want to be there anymore, we have to start to give our minds the fuel through choosing different thoughts to focus our attention on what we do want rather than what we don't want. And it's one of those hard places to be when you're in the thick of it, because you feel it physically in your body. And so I've worked a lot with the breath to be able to regain physical control of my body. And I've also always used fitness as a medium to be able to channel energy differently into a positive outcome, so that I was always taking whatever was, poison or the venom and learning to transfer that into a positive result, so that from there I could build and sculpt confidence authentically, right? Well, if I could do X, Y, Z, boom, and I was feeling that way, boom, look at how much farther you are today. And I could look at that micro progress that I was getting from breathing differently and being able to move my body physically to move energy out. We're energy before form, right? E equals MC squared. Like, this isn't rocket science. This is the foundation of everything. So for those of you who are questioning whether you're energy before form, I would highly recommend a beautiful physics book, or just go and have a read through some of Einstein's work. It's very, very simple. And today there's a lot of good literature out there, and science-based, even double-blind studies that will prove that you are energy before form. And so how you physically feel in your body is going to perpetuate. And so if you can get in front of what that outcome is by changing your state through mindset, through moving your body differently, through being mindful and aware of how you breathe, and using the breath as one of the foundations of what is a part of vibrant health, to actually shift your physiology, shift your brain, create more clarity, and begin to digest information that creates an inner world that really is in alignment with your authentic self. From there, as you start to do that micro processing each and every day within every single present moment, acting as a creator rather than a reactor, you begin to shift the fabric of your reality around you, because you're shifting your inner state of being, which is energy. So as soon as you start to shift your energy away from that label and that identity of I'm anxious or I'm depressed, and labeling yourself with that title, only when you stop labeling yourself as that and you begin to focus on the outcome that you want. I want to feel good. And something that I highly recommend, and something that I teach, is understanding the power of a word. Every word has a vibration. The only reason why you can hear me right now, Jordan, is because I am making a sound through my through my voice box that is going into this mic, and the only way that you are hearing me isn't the word, it's through the vibration,
the frequency
of the word that I am sharing. And so to really go back to energy before form, it's about understanding that how you choose your words is incredibly important. Even, for instance, there's a grand difference between, a gap difference between the word believing and knowing. There's a grand difference between the word wanting versus choosing. And they change the perspective of how you view yourself and how you view the potential outcome of a situation, dependent upon the word in which you choose.
Well, and our whole world is derived of the language that we grew up with. This is a desk because I was taught it was a desk. This is a mic because I was taught it was a mic. So that word has meaning and energy for a reason. And I agree. I know a gentleman in town who always calls himself a young, vibrant male. I've just shown him out, actually. Tegan McGinnis is always, I'm a young, vibrant male. And he says that all the time because he's like, my word has meaning. Like, yes. I am a young, vibrant male. If I say that all the time, then I become that. I am that. And I find that very, very interesting. He also said something today where he's like, it's called a spelling for a reason, because it's a spell.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and that's where that word is derived from. So the language in which we use is kind of like an incantation, in which is a vibrational message in which we share with our inner world, which then goes out energetically like a ripple effect into our external environment. And so that vibrational frequency of what we nourish and what we fuel our minds and our bodies with within our inner world. And I'm just going to pause there, because I want those of you who are listening to really understand that that language breeds a culture. And no different than the manifestos of businesses and all those things. You have your own manifesto. So check out what those words are. Check out what those standards are. Check out what those beliefs are. Check out what it is that you are really valuing based on the language in which you are using towards yourself. So often we're using language that diminishes us, that breeds a culture of self-doubt, that breeds a culture of, feeling unworthy or needing approval. Or we use language like, well, I need this, or I need my finances to increase, or, oh my God, what about XYZ? I need this. When we're in need, we're in a state of lower vibrational frequency, because we're telling our subconscious mind continuously that we're in lack.
Yeah.
And
a deprived state almost.
Yeah. And so when we're you know, and I'm all about in vibrant health as well as in vibrant living. It's about removing the psychology of surviving and going into a psychology of thriving. It's not being in a mindset of striving. It's being in a psychology of arriving.
I see. That makes a lot of sense.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's just different, you know,
you're not like treading water, trying to like just keep your head above water. Like you're surfing on that shit. Like you're having fun.
Yeah. And when you're in joy has a vibrational frequency that's radiates way higher than feeling really down and really low. And I'm not putting people down for feeling that way. Oh my God, no. It's like what I want people to understand is that you can remove the psychology of surviving and you can begin to embody the psychology of thriving and arriving. And to do that, you have to move from becoming a reactor to beginning to be an engaged creator within the present moment.
Do you know any other languages? I'm just curious.
I know French, but haven't done it for a real long time. I should probably go to France or go to Montreal and spend some quality time over there, because I did French immersion for 12 years. And then that was it.
Because I'm curious if other people's cultures and their language they use, like, you know, a lot of people point to North American culture and they're like, they're depressed and anxious as fuck. Like, I almost wonder if there's other languages and cultures out there that are maybe a little bit better off just based on the words they're using. Yeah. I
mean, I think every culture is different. It's the way in which we internalize the information that is projected or handed to us. You know, I think that's one of my biggest things is when you are in a state of vibrant living, when you're in a state of vibrant health, you are responding with ability. As the late Wayne Dyer would say, responsibility equals responding with ability. And I think so often we forget that because what we do is we give up our personal sovereignty, hoping that someone else has the answer. When what I truly believe is we're a wholesome being and the answers are all within us. We are already in any given moment within that exact moment, we have the opportunity to be in our thriving self, but it becomes a choice.
I agree. And I think our parents and our grandparents and people that came before us, they didn't have a choice necessarily, you know, they had to in order to survive. Whereas us, like, we're a little bit, you know, privileged to live in the time we live in. And a lot of people are, you know, I think it used to be back in the day, most people moved out of their parents' house around 18. And now I think the number's up to like 24 or 25.
Yeah.
You know, people aren't making that choice to be responsible and to take on that responsibility.
Yeah. It's a different world. And I think that every time has a different challenge, right? Like right now, especially if you're not given the tools, it can be a very challenging world. And there is a lot of going on. We're so saturated as a species within Western culture, you know, that we care more about a screen than we care about the person sitting across from us. And that becomes, you know, there's been a great book that I've been reading lately, and it was just a great reminder of how much time we place on objective reality. Right. So now where am I going with this? Yeah, there's always that pause of like, where are we going with this?
There's a lot in there.
There's
Would you say it's less time on objective reality or more time?
No, it's almost like we're living in a time right now in the technological age where there's so much going on. It's sensory overload. And this is something, and this is sadly a part of something that, you know, corporations, advertising, everything in terms of the economy. They know this. They know how the body works. They know how to get your mind to work the way that they want it to produce the result that they want. But it's not about blaming them. It's about taking personal sovereignty and taking back your power. Like when it comes to vibrant living, it's about, you know, kicking the shit out and literally putting the good fuel back in to become stabilized in your wholesomeness versus, feeling like there's a part of you that's missing or that you're never really engaged with because your attention is so focused on things that really don't matter. Mm-hmm. We make them matter, right? Because they give us a level of a serotonin hit when Dopamine, we scroll through crazy, or whatever, right? And so it's just, it's about really becoming aware of where you're spending your time, where you're spending your energy and where you're placing your attention. Because where we place our attention, this goes back to what I was sharing before, when we're putting so much of our attention on objective reality, what is the one, where is the attention going on the internal world? Well, it's not. And so what we end up doing is becoming a species and becoming a human being that operates just as a human doing, focusing our attention and our awareness solely on objective reality and forgetting about the deeper lens of our own personal wisdom and our own inner world that literally has the power to create.
Well, and it goes back to that poison you were talking about also. Like, you need to figure out in your own life what that poison is. Take a piece of tape and label it as poison so that you just like stop drinking that shit. Like, it's not good for you. And for some people that's Instagram, for some people that's Facebook, for some people like myself included, that's dating apps. Like, it just, it's not good.
Yes.
And you have to, but for other people, that shit's great. You know, and you don't have to label it as poison, but you have to look internally and figure out what that poison is and just stop drinking it.
Yeah. 100%. And a lot of it, we pay attention to objective reality so much, and we give the image of reality all of the attention when you are awareness behind the form. You are awareness behind the form. So this physical spacesuit, it's a cool canvas. You get to dress it. You get to put cool fashion on. You get to have a beer. You get to smell. You get to taste. You get to have sex. You get to have fun. Sorry if there's anyone that shouldn't be hearing that. But you get to have all these things. This is
probably the most PG podcast I've had.
But we get so wrapped up in the physical sensation of our body and what gives us that instant gratification. That we don't go deeper. And when we do go deeper, we learn that the only way to have power is through personal sovereignty. And so if we want to be a creator of our reality versus a survivor and a reactor of our circumstances, what we have to do is we have to begin to acknowledge the deeper seat of self. And that deeper seat of self is not paying attention to solely objective reality. It's about learning how to balance the human doing and the human being.
Damn. Okay, I want to take a quick break and hear from some sponsors, but I want to get into some of the breath work and some of the physical work, because breathing is something that I recently discovered that has helped me immensely. And again, I'll shout out my buddy Kevin, who makes fun of me all the time for mentioning my breathing techniques on this podcast. Yeah. But we'll get into it in a second, people. We'll hear from our sponsors and we'll be right back.
Woo!
Okay, we're back.
Woo!
Yeah, I find breath work and then just even physical activity so interesting, because I've gained a lot of confidence in my life from working out and seeing that progression that you go through when you are lifting weights and following the program. And I think a lot of people, when they see positive results, gradually they can apply that to other things in their life. And then breath work, something as simple as like, for myself, if I'm ever going on a first date and I'm nervous, like I'll just be sitting in my truck. I'll take 6 deep breaths in, out, not just one, like full 6 intentional breaths. And it helps a bunch. And little things like I learned, do you know who Renier Gracie is? Or Royce Gracie, sorry.
No, I don't actually.
So the Gracie family is, they're basically the originators of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Okay.
Which like kind of helped started the UFC and then grew into what MMA is nowadays. But Royce Gracie was, and I believe it's Royce, if I'm getting that wrong. Luckily, I don't have a lot of MMA people listening to my podcast, so they won't come after me. But
some of my students might be a little upset. Like, Sean, how did you not know that?
Yeah.
That's my friend or something. I'll be like, oops, sorry.
I believe it was Royce Gracie. He was one of the Gracies that was extremely talented, but never really competed. And he has a book that just came out called Breathe.
Okay.
And one of his lessons that he taught in there is like a lot of people, when they need to take like a big deep breath in, they just start and they go like, and they take that breath in. Whereas he's like, to start, you're feeling anxious, you're feeling whatever. You have to breathe that energy out first and go like,
yeah,
and get it out, and then you can get a nice big deep breath in.
Yes.
And like little things like that are so amazing how quickly they can change your emotional feeling, whatever you're going through. And so 100%. I'm curious what you do.
Yeah, I mean, I've done a bit of it all, but I think a really great book that I would suggest to any of you who are listening would be James Nestor's book, Breath. And that's a very powerful book that has a lot of data and statistics and studies in it to really understand, where we in society have failed to really adopt an understanding of the breath and the power of the breath, and how it's so not only powerful, but how instrumental it really is for us to be able to cultivate vibrant health within our lives and really be able to utilize the breath, whether that be for, athletic purposes, to go and perform. Mm-hmm. For me, I've really learned the power of breathing out, and I had done it on a little bit more of a subconscious level, like what you were just talking about. I kind of discovered a lot of breathing out, really exhaling and extending that to be really helpful. Mm-hmm. And I didn't really learn that. It was just something I ended up stumbling into it, and I did it and I felt better. So I just kept doing it. But I actually, and this was something that's really interesting that until I read James Nestor's book, I was like, oh, this is why. This is the answer I've been searching for forever.
Isn't that great when there's just that like eureka moment?
Well, it was like a light bulb moment for me. I was like, oh my God, this is fucking it, dude. This is it. So when I was young and I was, 16, my parents ended up doing, I don't want to say it now because it's all hyped up, Bikram yoga. And I ended up getting into the 26 postures, which it's now called, yoga at a very young age. And I did that religiously. I mean, I was probably going minimum 4 days a week. And some days I would be there, 5 or 6 days a week on average.
Damn.
Now, the 26 postures of the original Bikram series is 90 minutes in a very hot room. It's one of the hottest yogas you could do. Can't remember the exact temperature of the room, so I'm not going to even go there, but hot enough that most people, when they walked in it, you felt like you hit a heat wave and you just wanted to run out the door.
It's like a sauna pretty much in there.
Basically, it's a sauna, and then you're in there for 90 minutes and you can't really leave. You don't want to be there, but it becomes a mental task more than anything to just stay in the room, and then to apply yourself and to begin to engage with your body and to go inward. And one of the breaths, that training that is used in that yoga is you only breathe through your nose the whole time. That's it. You don't breathe through your mouth, period. And that was something that, because I was going so often, naturally I started to breathe that way on a daily without being really too aware of it. So over time I learned, and through James Nestor's book, the power of just breathing through your nose, not your mouth. Mouth breathers, everyone, equals don't do it.
Well, there's some studies that suggest that like breathing just through your nose relieves anxiety.
No,
right?
but it does.
Yeah.
But most importantly, so when it comes to relieving anxiety, it's really about the vagus nerve. That's what a lot of the science has come to learn. So the vagus nerve is a cranial nerve, and it intersects. So it basically think of it as it's got its hands in the pockets of the parasympathetic nervous system. So the autonomic nervous system, you've got your central nervous system, and then you got the autonomic nervous system. Now the autonomic nervous system splits into two: your sympathetic nervous system and your parasympathetic nervous system. Your sympathetic nervous system is your fight or flight response. So if I put a gun to your head right now, your sympathetic nervous system would go off.
Okay.
Don't worry, everyone, I'm not doing that.
That you know of, you have no idea what's going on behind those cameras right now.
But you don't know me. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. So you've got that system, and then you've got the parasympathetic system. So you can think of the parasympathetic system as your calm button, your calm switch, right? And so the cranial nerve, the vagus nerve, as it is called, innervates into all of the parasympathetic systems, right? So when we're in fight or flight, we have things like pupil dilation, and the blood is shunted from our digestive system, and it goes straight into our peripheries. So we can either fight or run or take action immediately. Our heart begins to race, all of those things. Well, the parasympathetic is the opposite. It's that calm button where your digestion is triggered to go on, and where your heart starts beating slower, and where you're feeling calm and relaxed. You're not in a hyper state of, we need to do something or we're going to die. And when we're in an anxious state, what happens is we switch on that fight or flight system. And so we get this alarm trigger going off, except for when you're in anxiety, what's happening is you may have a thought or a feeling and nothing's actually physically happening, and that alarm is going off. And the more that alarm goes off, the more we ingrain this habit of the endocrine system, so our hormonal release, to start releasing cortisol. And so we become almost addicted to that hormonal response and that engagement with our physiology. And so the body almost becomes addicted to turning on that fight or flight system.
Interesting.
It becomes a pattern, right? And then when we're triggered by either things in our environment or certain thoughts, that can be the alarm that goes off. And so what we have to do is begin to use the breath to trigger the vagus nerve to switch on the parasympathetic system. And to do that, you can do the vagus. There's a lot of different types of breathing techniques. I keep mine really simple, but they've worked, you know, and that's one component. That's one component. You can calm your body down all you want, but if at the end of the day, your core beliefs are keeping you in self-sabotage and, you know, a level of where you're actually not moving forward, or you're living from a culture of fear, that's going to be the ultimate trigger.
It sounds almost like if your body gets stuck in that fight or flight, reaction, that it becomes a habit, and you keep going there and you keep going there and you keep going there, and you almost need to develop a different habit that keeps you away from there.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's exactly what happens. So no different with our thoughts, how we can have a certain thought and then we have an immediate feeling. We are either in, once again, reaction or creator. We're always creating by our choice, but there's a different mental shift between someone who's in reaction, just reacting to from an impulse of, oh, I don't like to feel this way. And then we get scared, versus awareness. Boom. Whoa. Okay. Feeling this. All right. Now I'm going to focus on controlling my breath. If I get control of the breath, like I always say, your breath is your first line of defense and wellness, period. It's like, quote verbatim. Just remember that. Whenever you're feeling, scared or overwhelmed, just think your breath is your first line of defense and wellness. So use it, exercise it. Use, a 5 to 5 second breathing, inhale through your nose, exhale through your nose, and make it controlled. So back to yoga, another part of that breathing was, even doing a little bit of breathing inside the back of your throat where you're actually creating a level of constriction. So there's a difference between me breathing right now. You can kind of hear that. Maybe you guys can, maybe you can't. And there's a different one. Sounds like you're actually filling up a balloon. Now, I personally use the filling up balloon because I can hear it. When I've been in anxious states before, I've had to remove my attention from whatever my brain is focused on or whatever that thought or that emotion is being stimulated by. And to do that, it would be, okay, just come home to the breath. And to do that, it was making a noise. So using a little bit of that constriction helped me take awareness out from either thinking about a past thought and festering on it or projecting into the future and getting worried about it. And it allowed me to come home if I could just hear my own breath and then start to feel my own heart. And it would bring me back to the present moment.
Right. That's so important, is trying to be present. Like anybody who's a creative or even an athlete or wherever, like being in a flow state is just like the ultimate presence, like just pure presence. And
yes.
Is it possible to achieve that like constantly? Like you probably like, are there people out there that you think can achieve that? Like just forever present?
I think there are. I mean, I think, monks, I think people that do a lot of meditation and that they're in that, it's not to say that thinking about the past or thinking and projecting about the future is a bad thing. It's just, what is the quality? Why are you going back there? And why are you going forward? Are you creating a goal or you're creating an outcome? Because what's really cool from a neuroscientific standpoint is that the brain doesn't know the difference between wake and dream state, which means that you can train your brain to believe that whatever you project into your future is going to happen.
Interesting.
And when you live on that energy waveform, you actually begin to shift the fabric of time.
That's kind of like the whole, what is that called? Like Conor McGregor's a big proponent of that. Like,
manifesting.
Yeah.
It's a real thing in my world.
Yeah.
When you are on the vibrant living train, manifesting is kind of, I know it's kind of more of that buzzword, but ultimately you're creating your reality. And it's about harnessing a level of power over that. It seems kind of, I think for a lot of people, I think more people are more aware of it now, or they've had experiences. For me, I had a huge awakening and started shifting in that arena. And the more I shifted my energy, the more I started to see things differently. And it got to a point where it was just like, I can't make this stuff up. Like, it's just, this is how it is. And this is the door that most people never get to open. And it's fucking magic, And it's radical because you understand the power of living as a creator rather than a survivor so fast as soon as you've been in that flow state, right? And when you start leading your life by harnessing all of your mind, your body, and your spirit in unity and in coherence as one, as soon as you start to really harmonize with that, it just takes things to a different level. Like, it's mind-blowing, some of the experiences that you can have in a flow state and living vibrantly through a lens of reality where you're the creator of it rather than the reactor of it. And understanding that, shit's gonna happen. Fucking mistakes are gonna come and go, right? But at the end of the day, you're on that journey. That's the road, right? But understanding that if you're going to literally decide that you're going to be a human doing rather than a human being and not exercise all of the natural resources that are at your disposal, then you're just choosing not to take control of personal sovereignty. You're choosing to, segregate yourself from a huge aspect of what can give you that full advantage.
It's super interesting how you use the word creator so often, and it kind of like, it almost reminds me of like something religious, but like me personally, I'm not a religious person, but I do believe that there is something greater than myself out there, and then whether that's just the universe in general or a form of energy. And if you do look at religious texts, they say that like the creator is within all of us, and that's kind of like what it sounds like to me, like you're adopting in your practice is like embrace that creator within yourself and create the reality that you want to see.
I mean, I'm not religious. I'm not someone who likes the idea of religion.
Organized religion.
No, it's not my thing at all. Yeah. And I'm very much more about being in alignment and attuned to, the universal wavelength of energy, because we're a part of it all. To think that we are separate from the whole is just, I'm going to say it's stupidity at its finest. Yeah. Because everything in the universe is constantly touching and morphing and changing. We have birth and entropy that's constantly happening. And there's this, you just watch the change in seasons. You just look at nature and you can learn so much. And that's what's so interesting. Like on the more basic level, like people separate humans from nature nowadays. And it's like, no, like we are animals, we are nature. And just like we are the universe, we are 100%. Everything, and everything is us at the same time. And it's mind blowing, when you start to have personal experiences of flow states. Like I'll share one with you. I don't know how we're doing for time, but, I think I've had a lot of really crazy cool ones, but one in particular where it was like, really taking more of a leap of faith was, the most, kind of crazy one was I was feeling quite a bit confused. I was driving in my car and I had a little bit of a conflict going on, put it that way. And the conflict is that I was discovering that I had this other gift of poetry and lyrically, like even being able to call myself a lyricist and just having this way of putting words together in a way that I never knew I really could at that caliber. And I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. And then I just had this feeling that I almost needed to go to Los Angeles. And I was Los Angeles. Like, oh my God. I'm like, that didn't sound right. Los Angeles. And I was like, oh, why? Like, what would I go there for? Right. And I had asked myself a question while I was driving, and long story short, I had these wonderful synchronistic events just happen right at that pinnacle moment. And before I knew it, I was over in LA. And if you want to know the full detail of the story, if we're talking about, the power of alignment and the power of what I've really come to understand, which I never thought that I would be kind of on maybe even that wavelength. It kind of seemed a little bit far out for me many years ago. But now it's a way of life. I mean, I live my life very on the mindset of being really real, being, one foot in physical reality, but then the other in my intuition. And intuition is not linear like physical reality that we see in terms of birth and entropy. Intuition is on the fabric of infiniteness, where there is no timeline. And so it works differently. Okay. And this is the whole piece that I'm sharing with you about the human and the being is just that. You are awareness, which the power of consciousness and awareness doesn't die. The body does, the spacesuit dies, the other part doesn't. And this was all in a small, short timeline of like me learning a lot of things and kind of putting the puzzle pieces together. But I very much live from a place of watching the symbolisms that show up in my life and listening to very specific words that maybe people say to me, or feeling a nudge in my gut and being like, take a right. I don't know why. Just do it. And it has served me. It has allowed me to uncover more of my gifts, my natural abilities, and to really begin to align with the purposeful path that I feel is my time to walk.
I think that where most people can relate to that is just in simple interactions with other humans also. Like you can tell your intuition could be like, yo, this person's, you know, and their intentions are different, or, you know, they're, oh no, this is a really good, like I'm getting a great energy from this person.
Yes.
Obviously there's some people I'm sure out there that can manipulate that in very bad ways, but generally speaking, I think a lot of people can relate in that sense. And so is that what you mean by like the infinite and intuition?
Yeah. And
like,
so what I'm saying, and what I just want to mention about that when I say infinite and intuition, I just kind of want to share that if you're open to developing an awareness beyond where you're at right now, if you feel that you're very much more based in physical reality, and maybe you've had those little crumbs or those little nudges from intuition, or you've had experiences that you can't quite explain, or you deemed a lot of those experiences that you do have that are acts of flow and manifestation as just luck, I'll be the first person to tell you it's not. There's a really beautiful and magical way in which when you begin to harmonize and create alignment, that you actually begin to create. And the cool part about it is that you have, I'm going to say the universe, but you have energy actually supporting you. Does that make sense?
It's hard for me to put into words, but yet again, how I can,
like, where are you at with that?
Yeah. Well,
because then that'll help me kind of like cater more to this.
Well, what I've noticed in my life personally, and so this is just a personal experience, but like where I make the greatest leaps in my career, and specifically my career, I'm sure I could use it in other places in my life as well. But with my career, it's like when I leave a job. Yeah. And it's like, okay, how am I going to pay my bills for the next month, you know? And how am I going to take that step forward rather than backwards, or rather than staying stagnant? And so it's always that moment where I'm unemployed for however long, and I'm like I manifest something that's going to be good for me, and I manifest that next job, and I manifest that next experience, and every single time it's always pushed me forward rather than pushing me back, because that's my intention. That's what I'm putting out there. This next job is going to be better for my career than what the previous one was. And so that's how I kind of relate to it.
And the intention is there, but also you said something that you're stepping into the unknown, and only from the unknown can you create a new reality. You know, that goes back to like Dr. Joe Dispenza's whole spiel.
Yeah, I got to listen to him more.
So,
he's dope.
Yeah. So when it comes to creating, it's really about, you cannot create the future from the known reality. Right? It's kind of like,
well, because the future doesn't really exist in the known reality. Like it doesn't. It's the future. It doesn't exist until it is.
It's kind of like, you know how you were talking about the breath and pushing it all out before taking a new breath? It's kind of like that. If you have a shallow breath and you haven't really got all the junk out yet, it's almost like you carry this baggage or this weight with you into the future. And especially with your mindset, you have to be willing to step into the unknown and see it as a positive place where you can surrender. And I will use that word surrender, because when I don't know, I'm like, okay, that's it. I'll literally put my hands up and be like, fuck it. I don't know. I'm out. Like you drive that ship. I'm out. Like this is as far as I go. You do something now. And every time something happens. Yeah. And so it's an act of, you know, doing your due diligence, not just like waking up and laying in bed and doing nothing, but actively participating in drawing attention towards what it is you want with pristine clarity of what that is, and being very detail oriented. And I'm going to say that again, be detailed oriented. Because if you're not, God damn it.
I don't think I'm very detail oriented.
This is something that I've learned. If you're not clear about exactly what you want, you will get it. So what I mean by that is the more detail and the more information you can be in terms of the specifics, the better.
So sorry, the more detailed that you are, the better. Then the more detailed they are, the more likely you're going to get what you want.
Not only that, but it's like the saying, be careful what you wish for.
Right.
It's not you might get it, you will get it.
Do you write down like what you want out of life, and like you know, because a lot of people use that as a trick of like writing down like almost goals. Yeah, right.
I mean, I write down goals, and goals are great to have. The question is, you know, are those goals really in alignment with your authentic self, or are you fooling yourself by carrying out a personal identity that isn't you? Meanwhile, deep down, you secretly desire something different that is like your soul's calling to some degree.
What you wish for.
Yeah, because, you know, the universe will always reroute you. That's what I've learned.
Just like, nope.
I've been like, oh, okay, I'll try this. And I like go and just like,
like wrong lesson.
Like, oh God, but I was just trying, like, do you know what I mean? And then you're back, and then you come back to the main line, and it's about, you know, can you create that clear sight from the main line without fooling yourself, or without doubting yourself, or without creating patterns of self-sabotage? How honest can you really get with the real you, and be willing to take the risks to open yourself up and trust not only yourself, but the universe, that if this is what you really feel inside and you feel that nudge, choose it.
Vulnerability.
Right. Yeah. And it's that vulnerability of self. It's also, you know, the vulnerability of being in your physical body and not fucking, how do I know if this is going to work out? I got no idea. But I have this feeling, and it's saying jump, and it's like, all right, we'll build the parachute on the way down, I guess. And here we go. And I've done that countless times. I can't even tell you how many times I've done that. And it's uncomfortable. And then all of a sudden you do it, and then all of a sudden people start arriving. And it's like, okay,
it was meant to be.
Surrender, you know, everything will happen, and just be really, really present. Instead of, the more we worry, the more we downgrade our immune system and our frequency. The more we can trust ourselves, trust our instincts, and trust that nudge, and know that the universe has our back, as Gabby Bernstein would say, it allows us to live more in alignment with what feels good. And the more we live in alignment with what feels good, the more we have fulfillment and joy and the accuracy of knowing thyself.
And then you're vibrant at that point.
And then you're vibrant. You're living vibrantly, right? And you're not, you know, you're not going to be perfect at it. No one's perfect. No monk's perfect at, you know, being present all the time. No one is. That's why you're here. You know, we're all just here to fail forward, have a good time, and to come here and uncover our gifts and serve them in different ways to create a ripple effect that then awakens others that, oh yeah, I got all this power and these gifts, and I'm a creator and I can do the same. Boom. And it's just this, it's, you know, sharing light with each other.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
okay, we're going to take another quick break and hear from one of our sponsors. And then when we get back, I really want to chat about your poetry, your filmmaking, and your public speaking.
Yeah,
so,
I'm excited to share.
Right back, people.
You know I love the way you run in the Limitless. You know that we connect like it's Bluetooth. Yeah, you want to drink, you want to blind, baby, you choose. Look at how you take control, that's some voodoo. You know I love the way you run in the Limitless. You know that we connect like it's Bluetooth. Yeah, you want to drink, you want to
Okay. We're back, people. Sian, I think you are one of the most confident people I've ever come across. And,
really?
Yeah. And,
okay.
and I admire it a lot because I'm somebody who's still trying to find that confidence. Like I'm much more confident than what I was when I was younger, but there's a certain kind of energy of confidence that you like express. And I'm curious as to where that comes from, because it bleeds into all of your short film projects, your poetry that I've seen, and your online content. So maybe let's start with where that confidence comes from and then how that bleeds into your work.
Yeah. Well, confidence for me, I used to have a lot of fake confidence, and there's a vast difference between authentic confidence and faking it until you make it or become it. And a part of that is an element of it. You have to be able to put yourself in uncomfortable situations, take a deep breath, and roll with the punches. But what I got really used to is being able to be in those uncomfortable situations and enjoy my own company. And the more I was able to enjoy my own company and be playful and laugh and fail forward like epically, it just became a realization that this is how you peel back the onion for me, like what we were talking about before. And ultimately, I think too, I've had multiple experiences that have really impacted me in a way where I really respect the physical time frame of linear reality and physical form in my spacesuit, knowing that it does have a time cap and I don't know when that is. And so as much as I don't really want to be, leaning into like a little bit more like the morbidity side, I definitely do in terms of being realistic and factual, that there will only be a certain amount of time that I have. And the longer that I hesitate to take action in ways in which I desire to, the more I limit the fullest expression of who I'm meant to be. And one of those things, there's a gentleman, I can't remember his name right now. Ed Milet, actually, he spoke of this. And before he actually said it, I had heard someone else say it, and I can't remember who, but it's one of those things where I think about in times when I'm trying to take a risk or make a decision, whether that be commit to going on a stage and speaking or commit to fuck it, we're just rolling with the punches, we're going with flow, and we're just doing what I came here to do, and we're not giving a fuck about what anyone else has to think, say about anything, because that has nothing to do with them. People's opinions of you are no reflection of you. They're just that. They're just opinions. But often we internalize them to mean something, which then we get like the poppy seed effect of cutting ourselves off at the knees or not really wanting to stand out and to shine. And that's not what we're about as human beings. We're actually meant to shine. And what Ed Milet was talking about, going back to that, is if you were to be at the end of your life and you were to go to the other side and meet your highest self, what would happen if you weren't staring in the mirror?
Like you weren't seeing your highest self, or you weren't your highest self seeing your highest self. Man, you'd be disappointed.
Amen.
You'd be like, I could have been this.
No, you are it.
Right.
And so for me, that always kind of sticks whenever I'm in a point of time where I have to make transitions or decisions to commit to an action, even when it scares the shit out of me. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. None of us really do. We're being, and you take action. And when you do it from a place of heart, and when you do it from a place of allowing yourself to really be seen and not fearing showing up fully and expressing fully or giving any hoots about what anyone thinks, you liberate yourself. You live from a place of freedom, and that freedom then gives way to inspiring others to do that. And so I also see it as an act of service, because the more that I can take the risk and empower myself in the moments when everyone's going, what the fuck are you doing? Because I've had that lots.
Of course, yeah.
It's about going, no. It's about creating that boundary of, no, this is my time. This is my life. And you have no idea who I am. I barely even know what I'm capable of. I'm still peeling back the onion, for God's sakes. So, get off my porch kind of thing. And I had a lot before I went to LA and kind of like had that risk that I was sharing with you about, where I kind of had that synchronistic event and I ended up going to LA and creating my first couple short films there. The decision to go, I actually had a lot of people go, well, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. And you're going to have, and we're talking direct people, loved ones go, what are you doing?
Of course.
Why are you doing that? Well, what are you going to do about this? What are you going to, whoa. Recognize, become aware. That's a fear projection of where they're at. That's not yours. And so it was, this is what I'm doing. If you don't like it, that's okay. But I'm going to take this step because I have to do it for myself. Because at the end of the day, if I'm not staring in the mirror at my highest self when I'm done here on my time on earth, I'm going to be fucking pissed.
Yeah.
Period. And so being able to embody that level of fierce love, as I would like to say, in really showing up for myself, knowing that the more I show up, the more I lead by example. And the more that I lead from that energy field, the more it's going to have a ripple effect to allow others to be like, oh, I can shine. Mm-hmm. It's okay to shine and not feel shame and actually like fail epically forward and, fuck up a bunch of times until you get it right. Yeah. Give her.
Yeah. It's so funny because I personally, and I mentioned this on my podcast actually with Huey Doge, who I mentioned to you off camera, like, I always have such a deep admiration for somebody who views themselves as like I'm the person to say this message, like I feel like so many people feel imposter syndrome. Oh, I'm not the person. I'm not the I'm not the guy. But like people then embrace that and be like, no, I am that person because I'm feeling this way and it needs to be said.
Yes.
I have a deep admiration for that. And I think you do that in your work, like like your short films.
Yeah.
Did you write, you directed, and then you starred in them?
Yeah. So I did all of it, except for hold the camera. And
was this your first short film ever? Like,
yes. Yeah. First one ever. And I did. I won an international Canadian award. And I also was a finalist in, what was it? Indie Festival and another one in Brooklyn and New York or whatever. But for me, it was, I don't know, there's such a level of doubt within ourselves that's bred within our culture to be small versus to be who we really are. And I got so tired of that. And I always knew that I had a lot of discovering to do. And I think that's why I pushed the boundaries and I'm still pushing them and I'm still learning and I'm still growing and I'm still even growing my confidence even more. Like we are not, we don't just wake up one day and be the full expression of ourselves. It's an evolution. We have to go through certain lessons to peel back the layers to evolve and become. And sometimes that means hitting a wall. Sometimes that means taking a risk. Sometimes that means letting go. Sometimes that means doing the things in the moments that you never thought you could, especially in the moments when you thought you can't, and just going for it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I surrender. I've got support. I'm going to trust my process. I'm going to roll with it. And if it's an epic fail, guess what? And when I'm 60 and I'm having a cup of tea, or when I'm 85, I can laugh at myself about this. Yeah. But I think that
what ifs.
Yeah, but not having that regret or that what if, whether even if that's asking someone on a date or whatever, you don't know, right? Mm-hmm. It goes down to the smallest things to the biggest things. But what we don't take a risk on, we usually never get. So.
And so how did you get to that point of being like, I'm doing a short film and
I didn't know I was there to create a short film. I think that's the funniest point of all of it.
Did you start with the poetry or did you start with a concept?
Didn't know any of it. That's the thing. So for me, I got on a plane. I stayed with my friend who I had shared with you about earlier. I think we were off camera though. Sorry guys. And I ended up staying with him, and I just woke up every day and I literally barely even saw that person. They were working away at the regular day job or whatever. And I would just get up and I'd go for a walk and be like, okay, we're going to figure this out. And I don't know when. LA. Yeah, we're in LA now. Like, okay, Spirit, where are you? We're here.
Where's that next sign?
Yeah, where's the next? And it was literally looking for the next nudge, the next feeling, the next vibe, the next number, the next lift rider, paying attention, just being fully in the present moment. And then it was sitting on the couch and going, okay, we're in it day 4. What are we going to do here? And then going, okay, what do I really like? What's creative? What feels good? You know, I've written a book. That's poetry. Okay. We know we have this little inkling of a gift. Now what? We know we're kind of wanting to do something. And I ended up taking bits and pieces of some of the things that I wrote, and then I just added onto it. And then it was sitting there going, well, it's not just poetry. Like, I genuinely, sorry for all y'all who are just spoken word poets. It's freaking beautiful. I personally love rhythm and I love visual. And I'm like, how do I merge all these? Like, I kind of want all of it in one. And I just sat on the couch for hours every day, putting words together and figuring it out. And then I ended up finding an app called Rap Chat. Oh my God. I almost wish it would have been so embarrassing, but I almost wish I filmed this because it was so bad that it would be a laugh for anyone. But I'm glad that, time proved itself to be something of adequacy because, it was bad at that point. It was many days of defeat sitting there going, I don't know how to use a metronome. I don't understand how to write on a beat. I don't know how to do that. I can feel it and I have a cadence inside of me, just as a spoken word artist has. But it was almost like I could hear sound, even though it wasn't there. So it couldn't really slap something on it right there and then and find something had to be created for it.
Right. So did you have visuals coming to your mind as you were writing these words? And then you kind of had the sounds in your mind as you were writing these words. And you're like, I have to find these extra pieces, these extra ingredients.
So my creative process was not as lovely as that by no stretch. I wish that was how it was. I kind of knew I had this knowing, right? We talked about believing versus knowing. I had this knowing that all of these pieces were going to come together at some point, even though they weren't. So it was like, I just had to trust the creative process of entering into that zone where it's like, you can just see the one step in front of you and you pray that there's a staircase, but you have no idea where it's going.
I think you described it as a puzzle off camera also. It was like all these puzzle pieces that you just knew were going to come together. I always describe it as a big rock that I'm trying to make into a sculpture. And I just start by just chipping away at it. And then eventually I can grab my sandpaper out and I can start fine tuning it and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, the difference is like with the version of the stone, I had no idea what I was doing.
This is a rock. Now what?
Put a chip in it. Am I building? Am I creating a face? Am I creating a bear? What am I? I have no idea here. So all I knew is there was words involved. There was going to be music, and there was going to be visuals. That's it. That was it. And I didn't even know all of that beforehand. I just started kind of putting words together, and then from there, I kind of felt, what if there was sound with it and did this rap chat thing? I was like, that's freaking hopeless. At least it felt like it at the time. And I was like, no, we're not going to do that. I'm going to make the cadence and then I'm going to put music over it. So I'm going to do the opposite of what every other person has ever done because I don't know how to do it the other way. Literally. It was not being able, I didn't have the skill set to do it the normal way. I had to do everything backwards. So then from there, you know, I kind of adventured a little bit in LA and I kind of like started to peel back more of the onion, obviously, and just kind of felt nudges. And the more the words started to land and more the feel of it started to gravitate, the more I kind of had this other side of my creative capacity start to shine through. And then it was, okay, well, I really love fashion too. And so like, how do I imbue that? Or like, how do I bring that into, you know, the life of what was being brought here? And what does that energy represent? And what does it look like? And what is the vibe? And what is the feel? And then where's the location? What does it all look like? And before I knew it, I was literally using, you know, those, the scooter things. What are they called? The lime rides? Or
limes. Yeah.
That was my vehicle between Lyft riders. So this is the thing when you don't know and you need to like figure something out, just get in a Lyft car and the person who you're supposed to meet will just be there because that's how everything got set up. I ended up meeting another actor who I ended up sitting there and then he awkwardly, because I was like, I need to ask him, like, I need to talk to him right now. And I knew it, but I wasn't saying anything. And about 2 minutes before his stop, he just looked at me and he goes, "Okay, I have to talk to you now." He said that to me.
Oh,
he's like, I feel like I need to talk to you. And I'm like, okay, we're on the same page here. Yeah. I don't know you. You don't know
energy.
me.
You were like that intuition.
Yeah, it was probably like my energy being like poking,
say something, dude.
Searing into his like,
awkward.
Right? So, like terrified. So he ended up talking to me, and then we ended up going for coffee. It turns out he's an actor, and then he's an actor. Well, he said he was an actor in the car, and I was like, I'm looking for a videographer. He's like, I know a friend. He's like, I'll show you some of his stuff. Just come meet me or whatever. And we ended up exchanging a bunch of details and he shared with me a videographer. I ended up going and meeting that videographer. Boom, boom, boom. I did the same with the audio side of things. That didn't end up working out, but I ended up finding a videographer that way, long story short. And on the other side of it, I ended up being, you know, writing it, coming up with the ideas of what it looked like. The videographer showed me different places where we could shoot.
Right.
You know, and had talked about like a train and tracks and things. And I was like, these all sound exactly like what I want, you know? And so we ended up shooting on 4th Street Bridge. 6th Street was all under construction and there just happened to be like trains at the top. And we ended up shooting the films over a 2-day period.
The shot that I remember was, I think it started out on like, were you wearing like pink boots?
Oh God, I don't remember.
And it started out on your feet and you were kind of like doing this walk, almost dancing like, but you like.
Was I? I don't know if that was me.
I'm pretty sure it was you. I'm almost positive.
I don't think I was wearing pink boots. I wore black and white ones and then I had black boots, but I did.
Yeah, I remember boots, so I might be getting the color wrong.
So I remember staying up till 3 a.m. spray painting on 2nd Street in Santa Monica in an alley.
The graffiti?
No, I was painting bananas pink.
Okay.
By a dumpster at like 3 a.m. in a back alley. And I had some people like walking by me like, what are you doing? And I'm like,
what's going on?
Hope you're not tripping out. You're not going to have any of my spray here. Like,
so why were you painting bananas?
Because they were
pink?
a part of my set. I did the production.
But why pink bananas?
There was that was a part of it. That was a part of the download of the visual of what had to be there. And pink bananas were one of the things. So I had to go and find all that, do all the set design. I also went thrifting. I found all these like little details and then slowly the pieces and the scenes of the symbolism that I wanted to use, everything with like the heart necklace and just kind of like this weird silver bag and the bananas and just, there wasn't a ton of stuff, but I mean, it was a lot to get done for, you know, being the director, the writer, the producer. I mean, what else is included in a set?
Yeah.
I don't even know what else. Oh, wardrobe, hair, makeup,
you
name it.
Indie filmmaker's nightmare. You were just everything.
I was everything, including the videographer was so upset with me too, right? Because here's the thing. I was also basically directing as I'm behind the camera.
Right.
So...
Because you can't see what he's shooting, but you want something specific.
Well, yes. And I mean, I had given him like direction, but I didn't have a board with every sheet. It was all in my head. So I was like, oh, we need this shot and I need you to catch this drop and I need you to do this because we have to piece these together later. But you know, one woman show, dude, I was not organized. He was like, I can't work like this.
And
so
did you have
like,
any experience in editing beforehand or?
No. And so obviously I hired someone to do the editing because I wasn't about to learn the programming.
But you knew what you wanted.
Yeah. No, I sat side by side with the editor and was like, this shot goes here, boom, boom, boom. Because he doesn't know the symbolism and the visual.
That's impressive on its own, though, just like to visualize it and capture it and then tell somebody how to edit it all together.
So apart from not knowing like how to use, what is it?
Premiere Pro or Final Cut. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, pay someone to do that. Please pay someone to do that for goddamn. Delegate.
I do it because I'm poor and I can't afford to pay somebody to do it. That's the only reason why.
It was rough. So anyways, yeah, sitting there for hours on end because that storyline, no one can piece that together. That's in your head. And I didn't have it written out. So I was like, this goes here, this goes here. And it was almost like moment by moment. It's not like I had the whole plan done. So there was moments on the set where I was like, this shot has to happen because actually we need this shot coming together. I was this videographer. Sam, I love you. You did an amazing job, but you probably had a torturous day. I can't work like this. I'm like, I bet you can, but Spirit's asking, so we got to do it.
The universe is saying this needs to happen right now, buddy.
I'm like, this is just what we're going to do. So it was really flying by the seat of my pants. And also, you know, you're in a city, you have no idea where you're going. You also have to, there was most nights I was coming home on the train from downtown LA to Santa Monica by myself at 3 a.m. I met some cool people. Most, you know, it's probably a really terrifying city at the same time, but I refused to have that.
Right.
Like I just didn't. I met an incredible young, I think he was about 17, him and his girlfriend were on the train and he was like an amazing lyricist. And we had like 45 minutes on the train together. And that was, one of my nights. And I never had a problem. I was just fortunate I didn't have that problem, but I would come back either having to walk and carry suitcases, right? Like when I went on set, I had 3 suitcases. Oh yeah, just looked like a total bag lady downtown LA.
Painting pink bananas.
Oh yeah, with, I had hair on, I had my makeup done, did that for the first film, like for the first bit, and had everything in a bag. I actually didn't even have a mirror on set. I'm not even kidding. It was so bad. I'm like, the next time I'm having a hairbrush and a mirror on set, like I forgot them and I don't have them. And like,
there's so many little things.
So many little things. It was crazy. It gave me like a scope of how do people do this in a feature film? Like,
that's why there's hundreds of people to take, right?
God, it was so crazy. I just remember even this one part, I still have videotape of it. We ended up cutting and I was like fixing my hair in his lens. I was like, just tilt it. Like I've just got to, doing touch up, a little bit too much. Makeup, doing hair, makeup or whatever. And just trying to, and then asking him like, does this look okay? Like, something I can't see? No, it's all good. Like put a little bit of dab it down a little bit. Like dab it.
That's why I always hire like a Jade Wolf on styling or something like that. Cause if I'm working with a female, she's like, how's my hair? Like, I'm like, I have fucking no idea. You look good to me.
I think it's a dream. I recently worked on a project down in Vancouver with a crew And I had a makeup artist, and I literally sat in a chair before I went on set and did so she did my hair and my makeup. And I was like, oh my God, this is what it feels like. I feel like a celebrity. I feel like a superstar. I remember getting there that day doing breathing techniques so that my physiology would calm down so I wasn't sweating on scene. Like, it was bad.
Yeah, I'm going to ruin this poor lady's heart that she just did.
Right? Yeah. So when I was there, that was wild. It was wild playing all the different parts. It was challenging, and I like a good challenge. I for both of films, I ended up shooting them. I think it was back to back, Saturday and Sunday kind of thing. And so I basically pulled all-nighters the night before each one, just prepping everything, making sure everything was in the bags, except for obviously a hairbrush and a mirror. And then when we got on set, I think that was one of the biggest challenges too. It was like, oh, okay, well, I'm in these heels and I've got to take these other things down. And then now I forgot half my other outfit in the fucking car. So now I got to like go back up, go across the train tracks, not get caught because this is an illegal place for me to be. Like, I'm not allowed to shoot here technically.
Right, yeah, you don't have permits or anything.
No permits, and there's trains like that are active on those tracks. And one of the days actually was a nightmare because his window broke. So the videographer, his window broke, and we had loaded everything into the car.
Oh, no.
But now we're in an environment where there's a lot of people who would steal everything.
Yeah.
Oh God, it was, and it was hot. Like when I talk hot out, on top of like lifting and like trying to, I'm pretty sure, I think I actually remember I said to Sam, because I said, I have to go do a wardrobe change and my stuff's in your car, and his window is broke, and I had to like kind of do it in a way that people didn't think that his car was broke, get everything out that I needed. And then I just said, fuck it. Like I didn't have any time left. The sun was going down, right? You only have a certain amount of light. And I was like, director's call here, or personal like care for, being seen naked by a bunch of people. I didn't care. I literally stripped in the middle of the street. There was cars going. I was naked.
You're like, I'm doing this for the art right now.
Like, director says, no, we need you fucking on set now. I was like, this is horrible. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, we're doing this. So it all ended up working out. And I was like, I don't care. I'm never going to see these people again.
I don't know these people.
So who cares? Tits out, whatever. Vag out, changing, getting your stockings on, and it's sticking to you because it's like 40 degrees heat. So you're trying to, and you just look
You're not even
nasty.
attractive. You're like,
right? And your makeup's dripping and you're trying to like just get it all together.
life of a filmmaker, huh?
Fuck, that was a trip. I didn't do drugs either. So I'm like, man, next time. No, I'm kidding.
Well, if you could wrap up that whole experience, put a little bow tie in it, maybe give a little bit of knowledge for the people on a lesson and takeaway. And then also, I'd love for you to shout out all of your, all the things you got going on, your Instagram and what your business is, and where people, and the name of the short films, where people can find it, all that kind of stuff.
That's a good question. Where can they find it? I'm just trying to find here. I'm like, I would share the awards I won if I could remember what they were. So we're just going to quickly check that, and then we know. And then I'm not saying something that's not real.
And I'd love to find out if you were wearing pink boots or not, because I specifically remember it, and I know it was your clip. Because I remember the train tracks, I remember the graffiti.
No, the pink boots were recent.
Oh, so maybe I'm thinking of a different project.
You're thinking, no, this was kind of like the outfit style that I had.
This is what I saw. Yeah. So I'm just tripping. You're not wearing pink boots there.
No, I was wearing pink boots the other week for my photo shoot, which I posted on Facebook.
Okay, maybe that's what I'm confusing.
But I had like...
That's the clip I'm thinking of, though.
Okay, this one. So this was Illumination.
Yes.
And the other one was Segregation, right? There's like the pink bananas.
So maybe I'm confusing the
you're just confusing. Yeah. So that's
and it's the purple rain and all the pink stuff on here. Well, I guess that's purple.
So it's, Canada Shorts and Canadian and International Short Films Festival.
That's amazing that you won on your first
Yeah.
short film also.
Yeah,
And
the first
just
one did
diving
that.
in head first.
Yeah, and then I got an award nominee in Los Angeles International Film Festival for Indie Short Fest. I was a finalist in Independent Short Awards in Los Angeles, and then New York International Arts Festival, Queens Underground Black and Brown Film Festival. I
Damn.
got selected for. So that was for the 2 films. But the first one I did, Segregation, got the most.
Awards.
Or just nomination. It only won 1 award. It was nominated an award, so it was like a finalist. And I'm still learning. I'm like, I don't even know what like I'm literally like,
There's so
I'm
many
like virgin.
filmmakers
It's
listening
kind of
right now. They're like, this motherfucker doesn't even know what she won.
I have no idea. I'm like, are we on right now?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah, this is my brain. So the creative side of me. When it's like coaching Sean, it's like very like super structured. We're dialed in, and then creative, I'm still learning. So yeah, it was Segregation was the first film that I wrote, and the sequel to that, I kind of made it almost like a 2-part film. So it was Segregation to Illumination. So Illumination was really meant to be more of the answer key of Segregation. That's why they're short films and there's a lot of symbolism and they all weave. And then the symbolism within, just the bites that you see all are interlaced. So even within the first short film, you see the same physical objects within the first one, also in the second one, all kind of piecing it together. Yeah, that's why when we were talking about editing, I was like, no one can edit that. Like, I have to do it.
Right.
And I have to make sure I have all the shots, but I didn't even have a shot list written out. So for all of those you listening, you can do it all without ever needing to have everything dialed in and perfect. If anything, go for imperfection and allow yourself to be really present so that you can have your intuition really guide you in that. Because I think that for creatives, like for me, it's the work of a deeper seat of myself at work, but myself isn't Sian Flanagan. It's awareness, it's consciousness. It's just you're the vessel it chooses to move through. Mm-hmm. That's how I see art. We are these catalysts and these instruments in which consciousness and awareness can move through us in the medium of creativity and through the expression of that. And, so just go for it. And when people decide, they're going to have their, for instance, I've never made a short film before. I've never even made a film before. I've never even picked up a camera apart from photography. I've never even made a bite-sized home ec film.
Right.
But when you are creative and when you have a vision, you just lean into it. You don't get caught up in the ego. I didn't give a crap about winning awards. I didn't even think about that. All I cared about was that there was a nudge that wasn't going away. And I knew that I had more in me to express. Mm-hmm. And, it wasn't about showing up to create art either. It was allowing emergence of creativity to move through me so that energy could be released. I mean, for God's sakes, like if you are pent up with energy, you can either become depressed or you can get creative. Mm-hmm. For me, it wasn't that decision, but I think that when it comes to creatives, I think that a lot of the times, sometimes we're maybe so hard on ourselves. And I think this is a big piece too, when it comes to confidence, like, oh, like, how do you have the confidence to like go and do that? I don't know. But this is one of the things. I've never been in an environment within that realm that said I couldn't do something.
Right.
So I almost had as well the advantage of not being pushed down by people looking at me, saying, you know, you're not pretty enough, you're not smart enough, or you don't even have all the tools. Like, how the fuck are you going to do that? Or you're not prepared enough. You're going to waste money. You're going to waste time. No, none of that. I was free. I was in liberation and in a state of true creativity and play, most importantly, you know? And I just allowed myself to flow with that independent of what the results were. I just found it, you know, as a cool craft. And it was a cool part for me to discover myself in a new way. And that's what it was really about.
Well, and when it comes to directing specifically, also, like, you're a storyteller first. And you're a storyteller throughout your poetry and everything you do. You're telling stories. And so it's just a different medium. And you can find people who are experts in that medium. And that's your cinematographer. That's your editor. That's your other actors. Or you can become that actor and express that through yourself if you're willing to be vulnerable. So it sounds like, to me, that's what you did. You were a storyteller and you told a story. Yeah.
And I think that everyone has a story in them to tell. And I think that everyone's journey has the ability to have, you know, greatness expressed through them. It's just, are you willing to get out of your comfort zone and to leave the boundary of self-doubt and self-sabotage and to take a risk and to be in the action of vibrancy from a state of play and expression to learn and discover more about yourself rather than worry about the outcome and the result. You know, we're here to be on that voyage and in that journey of ourselves, independent of the results or the awards or any of that, because at the end of the day, none of that shit matters.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that people feel the need to be like a musician in order to pick up a guitar and start playing, or be like a filmmaker in order to make a short film, or an actor in order to act, or a singer in order to sing. Like, just do it. That's part of the being that you probably spoke to earlier.
And I think that that's really... You hit it on the head. I mean, that's so important. I think that if even for a second, I was like, I didn't even know when my film, I didn't really even know it was a short film until I was submitting it. And I realized a short film equated to an 8-minute to 40-minute film. And I was like, I guess this is a short film.
You're like, oh, damn. Oh, okay.
I'm like, okay, so I'm in the short film category. I didn't know that until they were done.
That's amazing.
So it's just like, we have this perspective and this fallacy that we need so much education. We need to know exactly what we're doing. And yet I think that, I mean, in my situation, I didn't have that, but I wasn't afraid to go all out. And I think that maybe people who have teachers or mentors, and I mean, I've had them too in different ways, press upon you what you need in order to be established or to be successful. I would say that, you know, take all those things with a grain of salt, but really lean into what makes you feel full and what makes you feel alive. And that will always carry you through at the end of the day, through and through, because that's what it's really about. And your art and your expression will always be felt and seen from the medium of authenticity and felt for what it is when you allow yourself to be fully expressed rather than dimmed or half in and half out. You know, it's funny because you talked about a little bit about acting, and when I was down there, I ended up going to an acting class too. I was like, fuck it, we'll try it.
Nice. Yeah.
It was great. I learned a lot.
Well, Sian, I feel like I almost need you on for a second episode pretty damn soon. I feel like we only got through one layer of the onion that is Sian. So
there's lots to that onion.
We'll have to have you on again soon for sure.
Would love it.
We have to wrap this episode up. So if you can maybe shout out to the people where they can find you and maybe reach out to you, work with you, and learn more about you.
Yeah. So my business is called The Business of You, and you can find me on Instagram at The Business of You, as well as on my regular handle at Sian D. Flanagan. And the Business of You website is www.thebusinessofyou.com. And so you can come and learn a little bit more about vibrant living and how to really become a fully functioning human being in terms of vibrant living and allow yourself to express and shine your true confidence. So
Hells yeah. Okay, cool. We'll make sure that all those links are down in the description as well, people. So feel free to check them out. And thank you for coming on the Jordan Powers Experience.
Thank you. This is great, Jordan. Pleasure to be here. Always lovely to chat. So I'm excited to be back again.
Yes, me too. More layers of the onion peeled back.
We're going to peel it all back. Peel it all back.
All right, people. That's it. Peace.
What a life where we can dream, but all the time that we wasting. I'm playing safe, regular roles that make us fucking hate.